And we're back.
We're back.
You know,
another thing I'd like to bring up is that when you're on the other side, you can ask for help. I did. There's a couple of things you can do while you're on the other side, even if it's a near-death experience. Although I was without vital signs for over an hour and a half, that's by no means a record in the annals of near-death research. There have been many people without vital signs longer than that, even that came back to their bodies. And many of these people actually take time to go visit relatives, go check out things. It's very possible to have these excursions while you're on the other side. It's also possible to ask for help. I asked for help with a major question of my life. It was just the pet question of my life on the other side, and out of the light, 2 columns of light appeared, and on the right hand, I was educated by one of the great teachers on the other side, Darius Denshaw, and then on the other side, a column opened up, and it was Walter Russell who educated me about the work that I'm doing now, the inspiration for all the work I've been doing ever since my near-death experience. So you can ask for helpers, teachers. You can ask to see the greatest healer in the world with your condition. The other thing that you can do while you're on the other side is that you can be a help to other people from the other side. And that's whether you stay over there and or you come back, you can actually become a helper. I have, and we'll lead into the next subject, how do we stay in touch with loved ones, or will loved ones meet us on the other side, and that's very, very true. It does happen quite often. In my case, no real significant emotional person to me had died before I died, so I didn't really have anybody waiting for me. But I can tell you that many years later, and this is kind of an interesting little thing that will be in my book, is that what I discovered after my near-death experience, and I survived and became friends with my mother again, I found out that my grandmother had died of the same condition, brain condition. And then wouldn't you know it, my mother died of brain cancer, too, after me. And she went to the same doctor I did. Now, my mother never believed in these things, always didn't pay attention to it. And I remember the day she died, I felt her immediately come up from behind me and put her hands on my shoulder and say, Tommy, I get it. I get what you were saying. And so I've kept contact with my mother. It's very easy to do. In other countries and other cultures, they do this normally. It's very normal to do. I've kept contact with my mother, and my mother was always one of these project people. She always had some project going she was trying to get you into, whether it be yard or, this, that, and the other. She was a total project person. And so when my mother comes up to visit me, and I call her up, the first thing I smell is cigarettes because she was a cigarette smoker. So I know it's her. And so I got to thinking one day, this is about a year after she died, and I knew she came up to check on me. I said, hey, Mom, you're a project person, and you're on the other side, and you died of brain cancer and what cigarettes did to you. I said, there must be a whole lot of experts on the other side. Why don't you put together a team and make a project out of this and try to help me cure these things? And she got so excited. Now she had projects to do. And she has helped me ever since, retrieving information also. We can do this with our loved ones, and we can do it for them if we're on the other side. We can stay in touch with them. So that is, and one way you do that is don't lose the memory. Remember, nature loves memory. Memory is so important. Whether it's good or bad, memory is precious to nature. If it's a negative memory, there are many techniques to take the negative charge off the memory, but you will never lose the memory. You will always have the memory, but you can change the charge on the memory if it's an unpleasant memory. How you stay in touch with your loved ones is I call it an altar. I build a little altar in my house. It's on the mantelpiece, and I've got a picture of my mother up there, and I always pick a picture of when they were happiest. And my parents were very happy in their 30s and very good looking and all that. And so I have a great picture of her just being happy And that's the picture I use to stay in touch with her. And I still celebrate her birthday every year with a little tradition. I celebrate Mother's Day, which is coming up with her. And Mother's Day for me now is all mothers on planet Earth now. But on my mother's birthday, I always make her a cup of coffee, and I put a cigarette by her picture.
Oh.
It's these little things that keep the connections going. Don't forget them unless you want to. It's okay to forget them and separate if you want to. But like in many third world countries I've been to, there's one day a year they all go to the cemetery and have a party with their relatives. I've been in the jungle caves with shamans, and I've been to caves where shamans have so many generations of family bones going back in the cave. It's astounding. And they go back and spend one day and one night with their relatives, and they actually touch the bones and sing and chant and tell jokes and all sorts of things. So don't think people are dead when they're gone. They're not. You will see them again either in this life or when you get to the other side. But if you want to continue contact with them, you can continue the relationship by keeping things around that remind you of the positive things, like the best picture ever taken of them kind of thing. Have little ceremonies. I talk to my mother and other friends that have since died in my meditations. Call their name out 3 times out loud is a very good way to get their attention. And it turns out that talking to people on the other side is very, very easy to do. I don't know why people think it's so complicated. It's actually a very easy thing to do. You don't have to be John Edwards or, super psychic or anything. So we do, it's important if you want to stay in touch with your ancestors and honor your ancestors. I think that's a very good thing to do. It keeps a continuum going. And you can also do this with pets. I've done this 3 times now since my near-death experience. You can get your pets back if you want them. Your dearly departed pets, you can have them reincarnate for you. And they will reincarnate through your manifestation of love for them. And how this works is that first you have to decide to do it. And then get out your favorite picture of the animal and start talking. Don't forget it. Keep it alive in your memory, and start asking for it to come back to you. And you will get a signal one day, as I've done. You'll get a signal one day. Today's the day, and I pay attention to the signal. And I remember once I was sitting around on a Sunday. The signal came in, time to go get the dog. And I went to all the shelters in town, didn't find her, because you'll know them when you see them, even if they're in a different puppy's body. You'll know them when you see them. And so I spent about half the day looking in shelters first, didn't find the dog I was looking for. And then on the way home, I stopped by a pet store, and they had these mixed puppies, $50. And I looked, and this one puppy walked right over to me, and she told me who she was right then and there. And then you take them home, and this works especially well with very young puppies, very young, as young as you can, to take them home. So I took her home, I put her in my lap, and I prayed and said her name out loud. And that's when they incorporate in. They come right in. And then the test is, in every case, they will start demonstrating to you who they are. The old tricks, they'll recognize the old toys. It's astounding how it will blow your mind. So it's very, very possible to get pets back if you want them. Like I said, I've done it 3 times now since my near-death experience, and I'm planning to do it again here in the next year or so. Because I lost... Pardon me?
Are you going to do it with the dog you lost recently?
Yes, that was, and I had already reincarnated her, and she was 17 years old and died right after Christmas. And as soon as I am ready, I'm going to reincarnate her again. I know I will get her back, and I have no doubt of it. I've done this with one other dog that I've had, and I tend to like that. These dogs always prove who they are to you. They're up to their old tricks, their personality. It's quite miraculous. It's quite amazing, actually.
Is there a time element for those kinds of things?
No, I don't think so. It's when you're ready, because they will be with you whether you help them reincarnate again or not, or they will be waiting for you on the other side, happily ready to play. And they will be, you will see them when they're young and happy and frisky usually, when you're on the other side. So how many of us dream about our pets that we've lost? These can be fun dreams. Have fun with them. Make them lucid dreams. Stay in touch with them. They can also be messengers and angels to us, too. It's pretty astounding what consciousness and the manifestation of love can accomplish.
That's the sweetest thing I think I've ever heard.
And, just the other night I had a dream of, and it was a dream in which I was back with my dog, and she was young and frisky, and I was taking her over to friends, and all of us knew that she was dead in the dream. Mellen, she's dead, but we see her. And I kept saying, this is the manifestation of love. You're seeing the manifestation of love. And it was such a wonderful dream.
Wow. Well, that sounds wonderful. So, just a thought, what if you had a child that died?
That also is very possible, especially if the bond was a strong soul bond.
Yes.
That can happen in many different configurations, though. They can come back as a grandchild to some people. They can come back as a child of your own if you're still able to have children. And it's about consciousness. It's about not losing contact with them. And there are many ways that children can come back to us.
Well, years ago, when I was still in a very strict religion that you didn't even say the word reincarnation, I had a sister that died. I was only 7, she was 6, or I was 6 and she was 5. And years later, when I was 17, I'm getting goosebumps. My mother I begged my mother to try to get pregnant because she had 5 boys and me, and I had lost my only little sister. And she did get pregnant. And while she was still pregnant, I had a dream, and I dreamed so clearly that my sister came back in this child. And I even told my mother, your Rosie is coming back, and it was a girl. And of course I have no way to know if it was true because I was so young I didn't know my sister, but it seemed so real, and it gave me a lot of comfort.
Yes, and it's possible if you plan ahead and set up the sequence that even an adopted child can be your reincarnated child. But you've got to do it in advance, not after the fact, and then find a new baby that you're willing to adopt, and you've got this whole scenario going. It's quite possible that spirit will drop into that body. It's quite possible. Takes a little bit of planning, a little bit of organizing, but it's technically possible.
Well, why not?
Mm-hmm. So it's never over. It's a continuum, and the only things that we need to change are things that don't let us grow and are restrictive to us.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, I would like to say one thing here, and we can run over if you want to. I do want to talk about something that a lot of people aren't talking about, but I do want to talk about what I call the dark side of the light.
Oh, good.
Okay? And that includes people who commit suicide. What I learned on the other side, because, when I was sick and in a lot of pain and, of course, wanted to be dead, I had thought deep thoughts about suicide and how to do it. And for me, I really thought quite deeply about it and how to do it. And I thought the one thing I don't want to do is leave a big mess for everybody to clean up. I didn't want to do it in any kind of messy way. I literally wanted to walk off into a forest somewhere and die and just disappear. And I never did work it out, so I didn't commit suicide, but I can tell you I've been deep into it and into the process of really trying to figure it out. And what I learned on the other side about suicide is that there is no way around your karmic lessons. No matter how many times you kill yourself and commit suicide, you will always start off right where you left off. So it behooves you to have faith in tomorrow, see what tomorrow's going to bring, change your situation, even if the only thing you can do is walk away. That may change your life. And also, no matter how bad you have felt, because you can't judge your pain to anybody else's, it's not a subjective kind of thing you can do. You can't. Your pain is your pain and can't be judged in comparison to anybody else's pain. But I can tell you this: what I saw. I saw that on the other side, that in any given moment, no matter how bad you think you're feeling, there's someone on planet Earth that is far worse off and would give you anything for the worst day of your life. Because even the worst day of your life is so full of potential, it's astounding. So suicide is no answer. Now, that's different than ethical euthanasia. That's completely different. You do have a right to choose consciously and in a healthy way when you want to die. And I saw that on the other side, that in the future, deathing centers and birthing centers are going to be quite popular. Centers that help you consciously die. It's like an advanced form of hospice. And in the same centers, there's advanced centers for conscious birthing and actually preparing the baby to be born consciously with the mother, because you can help from the outside also. Last year I was in Sweden doing some talks, and I went to the Waldorf Center there. It's in the country. They have a very large place. It's self-sufficient. They had a hospital and a school there. And in the hospital, they also had this beautiful, beautiful area they had built right into the ground in the building, these beautiful stones that was for conscious dying. And it was sort of a hospice center, but it was a lot more conscious. And so it was such a beautiful thing to see. And this is where you could come and be with the person. This is also, in the ground, which was very nice that they understood the ley lines of the earth and all that sort of thing. And it was a beautiful place to spend, say, the last moments with your loved ones, fully conscious, and make a conscious transition. This will become more and more popular as time goes on. Conscious dying and conscious birthing. Very different than suicide, though. Very, very different than suicide.
How do they consciously help someone die?
Well, you shouldn't die because you're just on drugs or some condition that can be helped by others. Just plain depression. But there are many cases in which the quality of your life will never ever be the same again, and it's your choice as to the quality of life that you want to live. And you may want to start a new incarnation, and that's your choice. That's your choice, and it's okay if you do it consciously. The other thing about the dark side of the light is there's an interesting quality about light that a lot of people aren't talking about, but I saw it clearly on the other side, is light creates shadows, doesn't it? If there wasn't any light, there wouldn't be any shadows. Interesting, isn't it? I was shown this on the other side. So if you live in darkness, you don't know what your issues are. In other words, you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
If you live unconsciously and you live in darkness, you can't even see it in others. But boy, bring an enlightened person in, or bring an insightful moment, and the light, suddenly you see the shadows. Some people run from the shadows. Some people deal with it. But light is about definition. Without light, there is no definition. And some of the definition is whenever you generate a great light in your meditations, or whenever you do these light work, you've got to realize that you're also going to create shadows. Will come up. It's a natural process of bringing light in. So don't let that throw you off. And sometimes the shadows will.
What should you do if the shadows start coming up?
Well, see them for what they are. They're usually issues and complexes that you have, and without that moment of insight, you would have never seen them. They would have always remained undefined and nebulous in the darkness, like stumbling around in the darkness, not knowing what's in the room.
Yes.
So light has both qualities. Light is enlightening and rejuvenating, and also light will create shadows if there are shadows there. If there's something that will make shadows in your being or in other people, bringing a lot of light in will necessarily, in the same moment, show you where the shadows are. So that's another quality of the light.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I know there's. Would you say that people who constantly do evil are more influenced by the dark?
They are of the shadows, and this is the unenlightened, ignorant, self-centered. It's the same thing about, would you call a cancer cell evil because it's only thinking of itself and will kill the host. Evil is sort of an illusion that we have, but we do need. What's important is that we do have conventions here on planet Earth that we've all agreed to, like, thou shalt not kill, and these are conventions that are very, very important to us. But this doesn't mean that these people are what you might call truly evil. I'll give you an example. On the other side, I asked about evil, and I asked, well, what's one of the most evil things on Earth, and who? And I thought it was a human. I'd be some human like Adolf Hitler or something. And to my astonishment, I was shown one of the biggest killers and harmers of human beings in the whole history of the world. And just last year, it was on the cover of National Geographic magazine. Do you know what it was?
No.
The mosquito. The mosquito has caused more harm and damage to life on Earth than all the wars of humanity put together. And even the UN agrees to that. Mosquitoes still, to this day, kill more humans on Earth than anything else. Now, the light asked me, is a mosquito evil? You see what I'm saying?
Hungry.
And it's unenlightened because I asked God, why'd you even create mosquitoes? Things like that. But so this thing of evil is a rather narrow interpretation. When people do things that harm others, they're not helping. They're like a cancer cell, and should be stopped and should be treated. And of course, America has the most jails on Earth, and we have the largest jailed population on Earth, most of which are in there for nonviolent crimes, by the way, which we're not going to be able to afford in the future. But I saw that in the future, what we call prisons now become true rehabilitation centers. And, of course, there are some people, because of emotional soul damage or brain damage or genetics, will always be dangerous to the rest. And, of course, those need to be taken care of and managed so they don't hurt the rest of us, of course. But prisons in the future are going to be very small, and they're going to be rehabilitation centers. I was shown one thing on the other side, and that was, a lot of these people are in prisons for doing drugs. And we're not asking why are they doing the drugs. We're punishing them for doing the drugs. And once we start asking why are people doing drugs, we might then be able to rehabilitate the system. So the notion of good and evil is the way most people look at it is very chauvinistically human. We automatically think the most evil thing on Earth has been some kind of human being or some kind of human conspiracy. That's not true. It turns out that human beings are the most graceful thing on planet Earth, and that we're just sort of tuned by our survival existence to look at all the negatives, and also we're conditioned to look at negatives because that's a way to control us. We have to see through this. At any given moment on planet Earth, it's mostly good things going on, and most of the Earth is not at war. Most human beings on Earth are such graceful beings that if they're not being bombed or starved to death or stressed out of their mind, would not hurt you if it was legal. They wouldn't hurt you anyway. In fact, how many strangers have given kidneys and body parts to other strangers? Just out of care. That is incredible. This doesn't happen in any other level on planet Earth. It only happens with humans. Humans have invented incredible concepts like retirement. In the rest of the system, there is no retirement. Think about these graceful things that we've come up with. Charity, for one. Now, charities are fairly new on planet Earth. I was shown this on the other side. They've only been really around since the 1850s, and it's a miraculous concept, this concept of charity. And yes, this is kind of new in our system. And yes, some of the money doesn't get to where you want it to go. And yes, there's always somebody that'll abuse anything. But the concept is going to continue growing and growing. This concept of charity and helping others is an innate character in the human soul, which should be trumpeted. I mean, we're never talking about how good we are, just because there's some bad things going on the planet, and these will pass. Believe me, I saw on the other side that war will be illegal in the future, the not too distant future. It'll be illegal to have a war. I don't care who you are, president of a country, king of a country, dictator of a country. It will be illegal to have a war. Just like the law came to the West, when they used to have gunfights in the streets, and then it became illegal to have gunfights in the streets. It's very similar. This is coming up very soon in history.
Well,
it'll be illegal to have a war just because you want to have one.
Mellen, one of the reasons I love talking to you is because you're not a prophet of gloom and doom. You always have uplifting things to say about how we are now and where we are headed. And if you listen to the news, oh my goodness, you would pull your hair out. But innately, we know that we are good. There's far, far, far more people doing loving, kind things than a few who get featured in the news for the not-so-loving things. But I love hearing from, and I haven't even heard your class about the future. I know you teach one, but just in our conversations, it's just so uplifting to hear someone saying what I do believe, that we're just getting better and better and better and more loving and more kind, and more people and big famous people are embracing being loving and giving.
The rise of philanthropy in the world is astounding. There's a great book called Give to Live that explains all this, and it's astounding. They have already calculated, the world's expert in supercomputers, every problem on Earth and how much it's actually going to cost to solve it, and the figure is not that high. Isn't that amazing? If we just could get our leaders and we could just get our heads wrapped around this, it's not going to cost that much. In fact, in the book Give to Live, they show that without any tax money and or without using your paycheck, this whole thing could be paid for through spare change and other things like in some of the money. There's right now a tremendous transfer of wealth going on through inheritance, money you never worked for. It's not coming out of your paycheck. It's not coming out of tax money, and people are becoming philanthropists more and more now as time goes on. The increase in philanthropy in the world is really amazing and so hopeful.
Yes. Do you know the author of that book by any chance?
Not right off the top of my head.
Okay, but it's called Give to Live, because I know my readers are going to want to look that up.
And there's a big world concept now by some of the greatest minds on Earth called the eradication of poverty. There are so many great minds that have figured this out and how to do it. We can get everybody out of poverty on planet Earth and not even have a welfare system. And it would cost so little, it's astounding. There are some great subjects. So if you could look up on the Internet, the end of poverty, the eradication of poverty, you're going to see a whole paradigm open for you of people that are working on this and making it sensible. These are people that actually know what's going on and know how to do it. And so first you have to have the insight, then the plan, and then the action. The action is coming.
Yes.
But you have to have a plan before you can really do anything, and the plans are being worked out for us. As I said earlier, there are hundreds of thousands of people working on this on planet Earth today, more than ever before in history. And what I can say to people is, if you want to make a difference, pick one thing in your life and be consistent with it. You don't have to save the whole world. You don't have to join every organization. You don't have to go out in the streets and protest. Just pick one organization and support it for the rest of your life, and that'll make a difference.
That's wonderful.
If we all do that, it would be a huge difference.
Yes. You've been with us 90 minutes, and that's what we promised. But do you mind if I ask if there's any other questions for you?
Sure. I'm in no hurry.
Okay. Would anyone else like to ask Mellen a question? And if you're online, you can use that phone number, get offline, and call in. You don't have to get offline first. You can go ahead and call in and then mute your computer so you won't get the feedback. And
Rebecca.
Yes.
This is Linda.
Linda.
Mellen mentioned Christ light. Could you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Yes, that is, to me, it's in the same category. Each and every one of us have a Christ light within us. Some people would call it the Buddha light. Some people would say the white light. There are many metaphors depending on where you're coming from on planet Earth, and it's that light that I'm talking about that is manifest in every human on Earth, and that is the light that's deep in our souls that connects us to the light on the other side, to the main light that we go back to the source to. We are always directly connected to the source there without anybody coming in between us whatsoever. So some people call it the Christ light, the Christ manifestation, the higher aspects of humanity.
Is there an easy way to connect with the source?
There are many ways to do that. One thing that I find that is quite powerful and is good mind-body exercise as well as a spiritual exercise is to close your eyes and try to visualize a white star until it becomes so vivid. And it may take you a month or two to do this. It's not as easy as you think, but if you can close your eyes and visualize vividly a white star and go to it, that is one way I go to the light.
If someone is listening on the phone and the computer, what you have to do is mute your computer if you're going to listen on the phone, please. Thank you. So close your eyes and vividly visualize a white star.
A white star, and it's at first you'll find it's and hold it there, and hold it and control it, make it yours. It'll slip away. You'll all kinds of other things will come in until you master this practice. But once you've done that, it's very easy then to get to the light that people talk about.
Oh, thank you very much.
And
good question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Would anyone else like to ask Mellen a question?
This is Lisa.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Hi. Okay, I wasn't sure you could hear. There's been so much on, manifestation and vibration, matching your vibration to what you want. Can you address that, Mellen, and what you know about that?
Well, the two pieces of the two things, the simplest part and also the most difficult part of manifesting what you want in your life is, first of all, deciding what you want. That's pure magic right there. Like I said earlier, most people want one thing today and they forget about it, and tomorrow they want something else. That you can't manifest with that kind of consciousness. There's no continuum. So one of the very first steps of manifestation that's so powerful is to pick something and stick with it. The next thing is to literally go to sleep thinking about it and wake up thinking about it. That draws so much energy right there. It's astounding. Those two things are some of the most powerful magic I've ever seen about manifesting things in your life. In my travels, I have been with and worked with material manifestors, these people that can make things appear. And that's astounding, and I believe that's just a higher form of physics that we don't understand right now. But that's different than manifesting things you want in your life, like selling a house or a car or things that you need in your life, or a career. That is one of the things that seems to be most difficult for people is they can't make up their mind what they want in the superabundant universe. And so, in a way, if you don't know what you want, how can God help you?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I find that to be very powerful. It's something I had to learn years ago, and be consistent with it, very consistent, and always see it happening, and keep the continuum going, and you'll find energy will fall into that pattern for you. It's not complicated, really.
Yes, Mellen, there's a little technique I use because I got this manifesting thing going on, honey. But I find that every time that I have this teeny-weeny little heart's desire, it feels like that I get it just immediately. Even, like, I like to buy my kids an ice cream cone on the way home from school, and I come home from school like 3 or 4 different ways, and no matter which way I come home, the guy has moved his cart. And that's just a teeny-weeny little thing, but I always say it either out loud or just to myself. I go, wow, the universe gives me every teeny-weeny little thing I desire. And I get all excited about the ice cream it's got a little push cart. But
oh, yeah.
All those little tiny things doesn't need to be something huge. Like, people pick out these impossible goals, like, I want $1 million. Not that they won't eventually get it, but I find one of the keys to my manifesting is that I just pick some itty-bitty little thing, and then I just shout and am so delighted that it comes to me quickly and easily, and I make music about it, and I think the universe hears it and goes, oh, she likes her heart's desires answered. Well, what else does she want? What else does she want? That's just how it feels to me. How does
Absolutely.
That
I try to, every morning before I get out of bed, I try to hypnotize myself a little bit by saying this is going to be a great day. I'm healthy, wealthy, and wise to my needs. And I try to program my day before I get out of bed. And it usually works very well.
Yes, and that going to sleep thing, I wrote about that in a little book I wrote about 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Going to sleep with, telling the subconscious mind, hey, I'm going to sleep. I read it in a book somewhere by an old guy, Ben Sweetland. He wrote this book in the 60s. Just tell your subconscious mind to get busy and solve the problem. And go to sleep thinking about it, and then think some pleasant, wonderful, warm, fuzzy thing. And
that's something I learned also. How many times have we sat around just worrying when we don't need to be worrying about anything, or just have this mind chatter going on?
Yes.
What I've trained myself to do is when I notice I'm doing that, I go right into my prayer. I have a couple little mantra prayers I say, and so rather than waste my brain power, I go into my little mantra, my little prayer, and I say it over and over again until I get out of that and I've got actually something to do with my brain. There's a whole lot of brain energy that we're just wasting by worrying about things that never happen, worrying about things that are already taken care of. And when I catch myself doing this, because we all do it, I immediately go into my little prayer, and I say my prayer over and over again until all that goes away, and use my brain power instead of wasting it.
I like that thought.
Yeah.
Use your brain power, because worry just wastes your brain power.
That's just wasted energy.
Oh, that's great.
Can I read a poem that I wrote kind of about all this kind of stuff?
Yes.
I'd like to read a poem. It's called People Like Us, and sort of a mystical poem.
Yeah.
And it's about our mission here and what we're going through. It's called People Like Us. There were some ancient promises made in blood and spirit, and now these have woven intricate karmic debts with interest due. This is the future time we dreamed of in the ancient past, and we are here now. The future has become the now. People like us, the karma makers, the web weavers, the sons and daughters of the darkness and coming into light, the alpha and the omega, karma and self-realization, the yin and the yang, leading to and coming from the absolutely still void. The balance point is ever shifting as we grow and know more than ever before. All this and more forms the human mandala, ever self-creating, ever self-correcting, ever self-illuminating. What cannot self-correct will self-disintegrate and reintegrate. The karma of ignorance is the same as the karma of knowledge. What cannot be righted must be forgiven and forgotten. Sisyphus and the sword of Damocles are free now. The old paradigm collapses inward into white ash. while in the same effect a new paradigm rises and unfolds its wings. We are all free now who make it so. Go home to your wives and husbands, go home to your children, go home to your parents, go home to your families. Honor all things and keep your promise.
Love that. That's so beautiful.
And I have one more about mastery. It's a kind of a short one. It's called The Clear Way.
Yes.
And it's about how do we master this universe. And it's called The Clear Way. In the supermaterial universe where all is God stuff, and God is busy being God in every way imaginable and in every way unimaginable, where the dense and the subtle light darkness of God spins and plays as worlds of spirits, realms, and nuclear karma. Remember this, dear one, as you begin to ascend. The darkest darkness created the lightest light of creation, and the light in the material universe will always create shadows. Call it karma, cause and effect, regeneration, degeneration, equal opposites in co-creation. It is the yin and the yang of things. It is the surrender and the force of will. The balance of infinite order and infinite chaos is the key. Being clear is the way to master the key. Remember this, dear one. Now as ever, now more than ever. Be clear with all things, and the universe surrenders to you, the realized self, the universal shaman.
Oh, I love it. So when's your book of poetry coming out?
Well, I could pop one out any time now. I always write, and I love writing and reading the sacred poetry. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's lovely. That's lovely. Does anyone else have a question for Mellen?
Yes, I do.
have one more question.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then the other lady.
Okay.
There are three of us.
You mentioned.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, who's this?
This is Yvonne again. You mentioned on Sunday that every morning when you wake up, you go back into the light, and what I want to know is, are you able to do that because you have had a near-death experience, or can any of us do it? And if so, how do you do it? Either way,
Well, it's a non-intellectual process to start with. I don't know if it can be taught, but I know it can be learned. And I know that people do it without dying and having what's called an ecstatic moment of being at one with the universe or God. For me, how it usually triggers is the minute I wake up in the morning and I have this thought, I'm alive, I woke up alive. That is such an emotional experience for me, so ecstatic that I go right to the light. And that's how it works for me. Now, I have learned how to do this in laboratory situations and get useful information. And that is a technique I hope I can teach in the future. I don't know if it is teachable. Some of us have skills and some don't. I've never tried to teach it, but I think I will probably put some kind of course together on it in the future. But I think it's something that is natural to all of us, but it has to be an ecstatic experience. It's not an intellectual experience. And so for me, realizing that I'm alive and that being alive is such an ecstatic experience, no matter what's going on. If people are, beating me up, or if people are, loving me, this is such an ecstatic experience once you realize what life is, that triggers me. So find your trigger, and I would say the deepest part of your love can trigger that ecstatic experience. Your deepest part of love for humanity, the planet, and the universe will probably take you right to the light if you practice.
Thank you.
And perhaps making that intention that you wanted to do that, and just ask to be shown. I feel there's so much help that we have help that we're not utilizing. There's spirits aplenty that want to help us.
Absolutely. It's just an amazing conscious universe. Every bit of it. From what I know, I would be happy to be even an atom in this universe, but to be the human part of God just blows my mind.
Oh, I love that. Human part of God. Okay, there were two other ladies. Let's ask the questions.
Yes, hi. I'm Mellen, and I have a question. I was listening to what you were saying about how you could communicate with people who were on the other side. And my question is, if these people are still as they were before, say our parents or whatever, what determines when they're going to reincarnate? How long are they going to be there so that we can communicate with them in that form, as opposed to they're coming back in another form?
Well, that's a very good question. I actually did want to cover that, and it's on my notes here. There are several layers to that. Some people are taking a break and staying on the other side for a while. Most people who are not conscious, most people do reincarnate rather quickly, usually within a generation or so, or that's why grandparents are much closer to their grandchildren in many cases. There's much more of a bond there. But in the quantum physics realm, here's something very interesting. When we live a life, our life and everything we do leaves a recording in the field, in the hologram. You know, they call this a holographic universe. Everything that we do in our life leaves an impression or a recording in the field, or what you might call the book of life, in the hologram of life. Now, this recording is made of real living quanta. Your thoughts are actually living stuff, material stuff. They can measure your brain waves now wirelessly in a machine halfway across the world if you're plugged up right. That means your thoughts are made of something. They call it quanta in quantum physics. The mystics have called it ectoplasm. There's different names for it depending on how far you go back. So what we've done is, depending on the energy in your life, because some people live a very energetic life and leave a great impression in the field, say like Elvis, for one, left a big impression in the field. Some people live a shallow, pointless, unenergetic life. They don't leave much of an impression in the field, but it's still there. So quite often when people say they're contacting the dead, what you're actually doing is contacting the recording, but it's alive and it keeps evolving, and it is real. It's just another dimension of ourself that keeps going. And so I could spend a long time describing the quantum physics of the near-death experience, but it's very possible to incarnate right away. In fact, most people that are not conscious will incarnate right away in bloodline karmas in the same family or groups of people until their consciousness sets them free of that. Some people decide to stay on the other side for a while, and that's fine too. But we're always leaving impressions in the field that are living recordings that are fully conscious and are continuing to evolve. And it's sort of very interesting kind of physics and metaphysics that's going on. So, I can talk about that maybe in another time where we get very deep into the quantum physics of how this is possible.
Thank you, Mellen. That's very interesting. It really lines up with some stuff that I already believe that I don't want to get into here.
It's kind of deep, but it's
because we only have 8 more minutes, and I want to get the other question in. Go ahead.
Okay.
I think it was Lisa. I'm not sure.
Yeah, my name is Madonna.
Okay,
and you mentioned being at universities and working with think tanks. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if you could give a more detailed brief summary of what kinds of things you're doing there.
I have helped. I was just telling Rebecca the other day. I worked on a project at the University of Texas, Denton, where we were able to decode a genetic disease by my ability to go to the light. Many of the think tanks and groups that I've worked with, I've signed non-disclosures to over the years. So, but I do make myself available to work in think tanks and to work with people. One of the things I'm very interested right now in is alternative energy sources, of which I brought in a lot of material, and mainly the whole future is electric. So I've brought in all kinds of ideas from low-tech to high-tech, because the entire future is electric. It's going to be incredible. But because these usually involve patents and things like that, quite often I'm put under a non-disclosure. But and I also don't work for groups that want to develop weapon systems or just get rich. So I kind of have filters on who I work with and who I don't work with.
Because I heard you discussing technology at a luncheon, but I wasn't close enough to really hear you.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm also been a full-time inventor since my near-death experience, and I've been able to do an awful lot of research over the years, and finally, just this year, some of the inventions I brought back from the other side are actually now going to be manufactured and made affordable for people to have. And these inventions all revolve around regeneration and anti-aging. And these will be out, and I'll let everybody know when they're out. Believe me, I've been waiting for years to get some of these inventions out.
It'll be on your website?
Yeah, I will, definitely. But I can tell you this, it's kind of a funny thing. Dealing with attorneys and patents and all that makes the near-death experience seem like a cakewalk.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mellen, when you get those machines to regenerate and all that kind of stuff, I'll probably certainly sponsor you on a call just to tell my readers about it because it sounds fascinating, and we might want to be the first to know. Absolutely.
We've spent a good number of years doing great testing and research and in the field of quantum biology, and we're going to come out with products that look very much like the things you see on Star Trek. It's really incredible, and you'll see and notice the difference after the first session.
Wow. Well, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, and I hope that's just the beginning now, but I tell you, it's a very interesting field, and I'm not a conspiracy person. I've never had problems with the FDA or the AMA or anybody, but what I know now from inventing and patenting and putting products together, there's so much trauma and drama involved in all of it that when I walk into a store, I'm just blown away by, I look at a bottle of aspirin, I say, you don't realize what it took to get that bottle of aspirin on that shelf. You have no idea. And I can just walk in and buy it for a couple bucks.
Yes, and somebody may have went through hell and high water to.
I mean, it's amazing, what people go through, and we consumers take it for granted quite often, and I don't take any of that for granted now, having gone through what it really takes to do all of this. It's a real blessing that we can just walk into a store and buy it. It's incredible.
Well, life is good. Life is good. Well, Mellen, I want to thank you so much for being my guest. And I did say I was going to do some EFT if anyone needed it, but we've used the time in picking your brain, which is great because we can do EFT some other time.
Well, thank you, and I'm very honored to have shared this information for the first time, and I will continue to develop it and make it more practical for people also.
Yes, thank you, and I'd appreciate all you listeners if you would pop me off an email to RebeccaMarina@yahoo.com and just tell me what this call has meant for you. And if you had some unanswered questions, put those in there because Mellen and I can talk it over, and I'll send you a recording of the next session we have, and perhaps your question will be answered. That will be my bonus to you.
Well, that's great. So, that would be fun.
Yeah, that would be fun. So thank you so much, Mellen, and
okay.
God bless each and every one of you, and may you have a wonderful night, and before you go to sleep, get clear on something you want and make it known to the universe. God bless and good night.
Mm-hmm. Blessings to everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mellen.
Welcome. Bye-bye.
The moderator has disconnected. The call will now end. Welcome to the conferencing service. Please enter your conference ID followed by the pound sign. Thank you.